Today is Thursday, May 29th, 2025. We're about, what is this, 9% into a waxing crescent moon. So let's take that for what it actually is and say it's still new moon. So very happy to be back with you guys this week. Sorry for the late release due to the United States Memorial Day holiday. It's kind of got my whole week messed up. So still trying to put out a good episode this week, but just a lot been going on, as I'm sure you all can understand. So first, I want to address last week's episode. It got a lot of really, really great feedback, which made me extremely happy because I got to say, it was one of my favorite episodes that I've done in quite some time. Justin apparently changed a lot of people's minds on how to view this hobby. And I definitely had more than one person come up to me and say that they're going to make it their personal goal to spend 100 hours on a single target over the summer. And I would encourage everyone to do that. I will say I unfortunately don't have the photos yet. He did talk to me and he did say he is going to send those photos over when he's ready to provide them, but he's just not quite ready yet. So I got to respect the guy. If and when, he's ready, I will certainly let you guys know. But until then, just take my word for it that, 160 hours of integration, very well done, looks incredible. So definitely looking forward to some more interviews in the very near future. I actually have a really special one planned coming up, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. I had some software issues. I use a particular app for recording podcasts remotely whenever I can't physically be with somebody, like I was with Justin last week. And unfortunately, what it led to was me having to use one of my USB condenser mics, and it just doesn't sound anywhere as good as the XLR Rode interface that I use. So try to avoid that whenever possible. But I have been testing it out. I think I've got it figured out now. So I will be reaching out to my interviewee very soon here. And we're going to definitely have a talk that you guys are definitely going to want to hear about. So definitely look forward to that. Like I say, I hope within the next couple of weeks. I know next week we will be coming up on the Astrocast 60th episode, which is kind of hard to believe. It's hard to believe that we've already done 60 of these. I always think it's crazy whenever I sit back and think, man, there's people out there who have listened to me talk about astronomy and the stars and all kinds of other random stuff for over 60 hours. But I can tell you with much assurance that I would not be here without you guys. So thank you so much to everyone who has listened to an episode or shared it with a friend or left a comment. Speaking of comments, actually very recently realized that Spotify has added the ability to comment on podcasts. And I saw this and I immediately went back through every single episode that I've ever posted and checked and responded to every comment on those. If you guys want and you're listening on the Spotify app, it would be a huge help if you just went and commented something on the app, because as you know, these algorithms, they tend to share a podcast with people that tend to have more engagement. And one of the big goals for the Astrocast this year is to obviously grow the audience. So we'll continue to do that organically like we have from day one. We did spend like our first $100 on advertising over a month ago, and it went really well, actually. We did get quite a few new people coming into the fold because of that. But I still think our bread and butter is always going to be word of mouth. And then just, obviously people searching for astrophotography podcast, we come right up. So thank you so much to everyone who has listened and shared with a friend over this last year and change. And special thank yous to all of my Patreon subscribers. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for supporting the show. If you would like to join the Patreon and join us in our members only Discord chat, you can do that at patreon.com/the Astrocast. So we had a couple great nights of weather last week leading up to new moon, as you know, because I went down to the observatory the one night. And then I also did some astrophotography from home the other night. But since then, it's been nothing but clouds again. And I'm really hoping that this isn't going to be another washout summer here in North America. The last 2 years really have been extremely cloudy throughout most of summertime. Now, we do have supposedly clear skies coming up Saturday and Sunday night. I might try to make a trip somewhere dark on Saturday night. I don't know if I'll, drive 6 hours away or anything, but somewhere dark where I can get a good photo. I know I mentioned it last week on the show. Well, actually, I guess it was 2 weeks ago because last week was with Justin, but I am going to make it my goal over this summer to do an interesting Milky Way shoot with every new moon whenever possible, whenever the weather cooperates and I'm actually able to do that. So if we do, get nice weather Saturday night, I'm hoping I'll be able to take photo number 2. I actually took the first one last weekend, or not weekend, week, because it was Wednesday night. When I went down to Gayle Riggsbee Observatory, I was able to finally test out properly the move, shoot, move rotator that I told you guys about, as well as the new lens, the RF 14 millimeter Rokinon lens, RF mount. That is not a Canon RF lens, but a Rokinon 14 millimeter with the RF mount. And it came out great. I'm very, very happy with the results. Actually, I took 2 photos while I was down there because I knew that I would get great results with the 14 just because it's so wide. And, I was doing, I think, 60-second exposures. So not, the hardest thing for a rotator to do with a 14 millimeter lens. But I also popped on my 50 millimeter Canon lens. So the Canon RF f2.8, the inexpensive Nifty 50 that Canon sells. You can pick it up for about $200 in the RF mount if you keep your eyes peeled for a sale. And I pointed that at the core of the Milky Way, just slightly to the right in the Northern Hemisphere. And ended up getting a pretty cool shot of the core along with Rho. And you can even see a little bit of the Blue Horsehead Nebula with my, again, unmodified Canon R5. And really, really happy with that shot. And it just once again goes to show that you don't have to have, a giant telescope and a cool astronomy camera and a $2,000 mount to get some really, really cool photos and astrophotography. And that's what, that current rig that I'm building is all about. The Move Shoot Move has really impressed me with its quality. It's so tiny. It's like it's smaller than a Rubik's Cube, the actual mount itself. If you've ever held a Rubik's Cube, I would assume most of you have. And then the Z mount that sells with it, that is also excellent quality. The ball head is excellent quality. So definitely a fan. It did a great job with the 50 millimeter lens. I had very round stars with 60-second exposures. I really, really liked the polar alignment, though. I think that was honestly my favorite part of the process. So if you don't know, well, first of all, the Move Shoot Move, it's a small pocketable star tracker. So the idea is you can take it with you anywhere and you'll have a very lightweight star tracker capable of getting you, Milky Way type shots. But regardless of what, form factor your star tracker is, whether you have something really small like a Move Shoot Move or something a little bigger like a, Star Adventure 2i or a, GT, you still have to polar align no matter what mount you're using. And one of the things that I didn't like much with my first star tracker that I had, the Ioptron, God, all these sky names and star names. I think it's Star Adventure Pro. I don't know. Someone will correct me if I'm wrong. But anyway, the Ioptron star tracker, the built-in polar scope, it leaves a lot to be desired. the little illuminating light doesn't work that great, in my opinion. You have to swing the whole thing out of the way. Anyway, I complained about why I don't like it a couple weeks ago on the show, but the polar alignment with the Move Shoot Move Nomad is so nice. It comes with a laser that you screw directly onto the mount, and there is a hole cut out of it that's perfectly perpendicular to the mount. So you just turn that laser on, you click a button on the back, and it turns on to a solid beam. It's not like you have to hold it down or anything. And then you literally just adjust the mount or tripod, whatever you're using, until that laser is pointed directly at Polaris, and then you are polar aligned. And I was able to polar align in like 10 seconds, literally. So definitely the fastest polar alignment I've ever done. And if you've got a nice sturdy tripod, I don't see any reason why you wouldn't want to use one of these for something like Milky Way shots. So the only caveat is this is not meant for even a small telescope like your Skyguider Pro. That's what it is, the Ioptron Skyguider Pro that I own. You could get away with a small telescope on something like that because they have like an 11-pound weight limit and oftentimes come with counterweight kits like the Star Adventure GTI does. But the Move Shoot Move can only take 7.5 pounds. So that's very lightweight, especially when you add in like a ball head. And if you're using something like a Rokinon 14 millimeter lens, I think all in with the ball head, the Z mount. Sorry, I don't know what you call it. The Z mount is what I call it. Little turnbuckle type thing. My Canon R5 and the Rokinon 14, I think I was around just under 5 pounds. So definitely getting close to that 7.5 pound limit. I wouldn't try to put 7.5 pounds on it purposefully. But I would say an 85 millimeter lens is probably about as far as you'd want to go. I'd be curious to see if you could do a 135 on it. I haven't weighed out my 135 lens yet to see if it would still technically be under the weight. I do know that you would really have to nail polar alignment. While 135 is still a very wide shot, I always used auto guiding with my 135 rig, my Rokinon 135. Just because you are getting into, a somewhat more telephoto length, even though it's very wide field for nebula, with photography, that's still considered a, strong telephoto at 135 millimeters. So you might end up with, funky star shapes if you don't really nail that polar alignment. But the thing is again, you use the laser to point at Polaris, and that's how you polar align it. So I don't know. I'll have to test it out one day. I definitely like to try out everything possible with each piece of gear that I own. Does it always work great? No, it doesn't. But oftentimes you will discover something, really cool about something that you didn't think it could do. If you just, mess around with what you have. So I'd encourage anyone to do that, mess around with the gear that you have and see what you can come up with. Now, my apologies if you can hear Zachary Bird in the background this week, our African gray parrot. He is being extremely talkative in the other room and whistling up a storm as he is known to do. So I've found that I really can't gate him out as hard as I try. It's pretty hard to gate out a bird who's whistling behind you the whole time you're talking. So my apologies, but just think of him as a guest star on the show. So with having those few clear nights that we did last week, obviously I spent one night down at the observatory when I interviewed Justin and took those great Milky Way shots. But I also had a clear night from home, and all the listeners of the show probably know I've got a pier set up now at home. It's been an ongoing situation for the last several months trying to get everything just right. I don't even know that I'm going to keep my Star Adventure GT on that pier because, I really want to set up the CEM 26 on it so I can mount larger telescopes on my pier as you would want to. But nonetheless, a couple of updates in that regard. And I actually was finally able to get a decent photo from my pier because I've had bad luck pretty much every time I've tried to test out gear out there. I've ran into one issue or another, but I finally had everything go perfectly smooth last weekend for one night. And I was pointed at the Dumbbell Nebula. And this is a really cool one. I will say it's not a huge nebula. And if you've got something with a little bit of a longer focal length than what I'm typically shooting with right now, which is my ASCAR SQA55, I think it's around 264 millimeters of focal length, if I remember correctly. I would really like to get my SV Bony 80 ED pointed at it along with the ASI 585 MC Pro. I feel like that would give me a really, better look at it. Focal length speaking, I guess you could say, in focal length terms. But I pointed the ASCAR at it and ended up imaging pretty much all night on that one target. And, I want to obviously do longer sessions for each individual target after, talking with Justin last week and seeing the quality of the images that he was getting. So I figured I would start with just doing one target all night long. And no, it's not the first time that I've used an entire night to do a target. I have done, a few photos in my time that have gone, more than one night, but far and few between. But I decided I would point up at the Dumbbell Nebula and go all night. And I did. And the results actually came out really good. I was kind of taken aback with how great they look. Now, given probably not the hardest target to capture because it is a very bright nebula. In fact, M27 is a magnitude 7.5 planetary nebula. I need to mention it's a planetary nebula, which is a little bit different from your other emission nebula because it is the remnants of a dying star. It's what gets left over after all of that energy is expelled. But in terms of how bright it is, it's actually very, very bright for planetary nebula. It's at magnitude 7.5. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that makes it the second brightest planetary nebula in the night sky, just behind the Helix Nebula, which is a magnitude 7. That's also the closest planetary nebula to Earth, the Helix. But Dumbbell is in, I can never pronounce it right, Vulpecula, I believe, is the constellation. And just a great time of year to capture it. So if you haven't captured that one yet, I would highly recommend you do it. And if you have captured it before, and maybe haven't tried again in some time, now would be an excellent time to do it because I was looking and the last time I captured the Dumbbell was darn near 2 years ago. So back in July of 2023 was the last time I took a photo of this particular target. And it's not awful, the photo that I took back then, but it's not wonderful either. All of my stars are really blue and out of whack. And you could tell that I probably wasn't using PixInsight yet, or if I was, I probably wasn't using it well. And now when I compare that photo with the new one that I've taken, I can really see very clearly the difference in skill from processing stars to processing the hydrogen alpha signal, the doubly ionized oxygen, the O3. It's just a really great bright target to practice on for that. And because it's so bright, just one night's imaging can give you a really, really great image. Now, I don't know if anyone's, well, Justin probably has, but I don't know if anyone has done any 100+ hour type, sessions with something like M27. But I do wonder what else it would reveal. And I say that because there are some photos that he showed me last week. And the one that comes to mind first and foremost is the Veil Nebula, the Cygnus Loop, Eastern and Western Veil Nebulas. He had photos of those that showed wispy nebula that aren't even in my photos, because he imaged so long that more and more came out. Now, obviously, being a planetary nebula, it's only going to spread out as, excuse me, as far as the star's energy has, which is, a very, visually apparent, stopping point for that nebulosity. But it does beg the question, what else could you see if you were to spend a lot more time on it? So I think what I'll do is I will probably put the CEM 26 on the pier within the next week or two, because I want to free up the GTI to go on trips with me on the road. And I will mount the SV Bony 80ED back on there. And looking at my old photo, I believe I used my 294, which gives you an effectively wider field of view because it's a micro 4/3 sensor. Whereas the 585 is an even smaller sensor than that, I believe, if I'm speaking correctly. It's one of the 1/1.2 sensors. I never know how you say that, 0.2. Anyway, cell phone sensor is what it is. But anyway, the 585 will give me more effective focal length when looking through that SV Bony 80ED. And then I might be able to capture a little bit more detail in that really faint, wispy nebula that is in the center of M27. It's often called the Apple Core Nebula too, because from any orientation, really, the redness that goes through it actually does kind of look like the core of an apple. So, another funny thing I noticed about my old image for M27 was I apparently didn't run SPCC because there is this huge green cast over the nebulosity that I guess I just didn't get rid of back then. I probably didn't know to. But the reason that happens, why you oftentimes have more green in your photos right after you process them, is because the Bayer pattern or Bayer matrix on your camera, if you're using a one-shot color camera like I was, the pixels are usually set up in RGB. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that means that you get more of the green signal since, every sub-pixel is 2-to-1 for green to red or green to blue. So that's why we got to reduce that green a little bit in PixInsight when we are processing our nebula photos. Also freed up a Raspberry Pi that I've had sitting around here for a while with nothing to do with it, and decided I'm going to give K-Stars a whirl. So I remember speaking with Rick and Jeff of Dark Dragons Astronomy, shout out, sponsor of the show, about K-Stars because they live by it. They absolutely love using it. And I want to test drive it. Just like if you've ever installed a version of Linux as a side load on your computer, then you probably know what I'm talking about. You maybe won't daily drive it as your main computer, but it's still fun to get in there and see what it can do. And who knows, it might be, 1,000 times better than the ASI Air, and maybe I'll want to do it. And there are more and more products coming out all the time now that really are giving the ASI Air a run for its money. I was looking at a StellarMate Pro. They released their third revision of their hardware last October, and I was actually reading a review on it, and they were talking about how awesome it is that it works with pretty much all hardware that you can throw at it. So, if you've got a QHY or a Player One camera, you can plug it in, unlike with an ASI Air where you're locked into that ZWO system of cameras. So definitely some competition out there. I hope that competition continues to grow. I feel like the more players that we have in the astrophotography game, the better, because that just means that, more people are going to be able to buy more gear that hopefully works better and better for them. And, competition usually equals lower prices over the long term. So hopefully that means some of the prices will start coming down on some of those things. Now, I will say the StellarMate Pro is definitely a little bit more expensive than the ASI Air. Not like crazy expensive, but I was looking on High Point and they were going for, I think, around $600 US. So definitely not the cheapest thing out there. But again, a lot more flexible, has a lot more ports, built-in GPS. That's pretty cool. Or I'm sorry, support for GPS antennas, I believe is the correct way to put that. But definitely some really cool features on that. And I know Quiv the Lazy Geek on YouTube He did a review of another astrophotography controller not too long ago, but I kind of ignored it for the time because it had just terrible reviews. I remember another YouTuber that I follow did a review on it, and it was just basically broken out of the box. So I'll probably follow up on that one when it's worth following up on, but we're just not quite there yet. I saw something else that I wanted to mention to you guys. This is I guess you would say space related is a fair way to put it. I have never been a big watch guy. I've always admired watches, but I just don't have the kind of money to go out and spend, 10 grand on a watch. God knows they can get a lot more expensive than that. But, I would consider buying myself a nice watch if it was reasonably priced and very well made. I don't think I would ever be a guy who would own a Rolex, even if I had millions of dollars in the bank, which I don't. But that being said, I know Citizen makes some price friendly watches that are very well made. And I just happened to stumble across this one. I can't even remember what I was looking for, but it popped up in an ad. And I looked it over and I sent it to my wife and I was like, maybe for a birthday or Christmas one year. And I wanted to mention it to you guys because it really, really is cool. Definitely worth mentioning. So it's the Citizen Tsukiyomi AT. And the AT stands for Atomic Timekeeping. I don't know a whole lot about watches, so I'm going to do my best here. But I think atomic timekeeping means that it basically has GPS connection in it that can set the time from anywhere in the world. I did watch a video, and that is indeed the case. Like if you are in North America and fly to Japan, it will connect to the satellite and automatically reset the time zone and the time. But what's really cool about this particular watch, I mean, obviously that's cool. And it's got a lot of other cool features, but the standout feature, in my opinion, is it has a moon phase dial on the lower portion of the dial, where the moon physically moves from the left side of the watch to the right side of the watch, and tells you exactly what the moon phase is. So it'll slowly make it wax and wane depending on what part of the watch that it's on. And I just thought that was really, really cool. It'll also tell you if you're in the northern or southern hemisphere, charge of the watch, the date, the second, hour, minute, obviously, AM, PM, all the basic stuff that you expect for a watch. But that moon phase feature is really, really cool. And on top of that, it has a picture of the moon on the dial. So the entire background of the dial is the moon's surface. And you can get it in a few different colors. I think it comes in gray, red, green, and blue, I believe I've seen. The blue is my personal favorite. I think the blue looks really, really cool, but the gray is the most realistic. So obviously with the gray, it's going to look more like the moon. But man, it really is cool. And the only reason I mention it is because it is an attainable price. It's not like, outrageously expensive like some of the things that I've seen looking into watches are. On sale, it's $637. So it looks like they've got a 25% off sale going on it right now. Normally $850. So it's made of titanium, all metal or all titanium watch. Obviously, the reviews I read say that it's very lightweight too. So I'm sure that would be nice. I'm an Apple Watch guy. I just wear my Apple Watch. It goes along with my iPhone, and that's good enough for me. But I've been trying to do less and less smartphone stuff and Apple Watch stuff. And, with the issues that I told you guys about a few weeks ago, I've been trying to remove stressful things from my life. And one of the things that I've started doing in the evenings is actually when I'm done for the day with work. And if I don't have like a go live or, something that I know I got to keep an eye on for the evening, I actually will go put my smartphone in the bedroom on the charger and take my watch off, set it down, and that's it. I disconnect for the night. So It's helping. It's helping a lot. I feel like a lot of stress comes from these devices and we don't even realize it. And I say that as a tech enthusiast. You know, I love playing around on my phone. I love playing around on my tablets and my computers and everything else. But what gets me is when you hear ding, 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 and, you know, people are messaging you, I need this, I need that, this, that, and the third. That's what really gets under my skin. Not to mention, you know, they know what kind of news you want to see and give it to you 24/7. And if you're a news junkie like me, that'll also get to you over time. So challenge yourself to try to maybe step away from your smart devices for a little bit. I know I can't remember where I heard it. A few weeks ago, I was watching an interview and somebody was talking about going out to Yosemite and having no service out there at all. And they basically just didn't have their phone for a week because of it. They had a like a satellite DSL connection, and it said like if you use this, it's $100 on the router or whatever. So just emergency situations only is what I'm getting at. And it made me think, man, I really, really want to try that. Just like disconnecting entirely for a week. So I'm trying to make it my goal to do that when we go to Florida in July. I want to, obviously, I've got to navigate down there, but like after we get down there and we are on vacation proper, I am planning on turning the phone off and not looking at it for as long as possible because, yeah, I don't really personally like where that is going with me. I don't know. It's got a weird hold on us, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting old. I don't know, but it kind of just gives me the creeps when the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning is looking at a screen. And, you know, I don't know why, but we all do it. And I guess that's the question I'm trying to answer is why. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. And I'll let you know how that experiment goes. Hopefully it goes well. I don't know if I'm going to have to stop and ask people for directions. It's the only thing I'm a little bit worried about is when I'm down there. If I've got to go places, which obviously I will, because we're going to be going to like Universal and the Nintendo Park and Springfield, USA, checking out all those kind of things. Obviously I'll need navigation. So I don't know, maybe I'll have an exception for navigation, but then I'm like, maybe I should just buy a map. You know, when I was, sorry, I know I'm going on a non-astronomy tangent at this point, but let me just finish it real quick. When I was 19, I was a cable guy who installed Time Warner cable for people. And one of the things that we had to use back then was a paper map. So we would all buy a book map, basically, and you would have to literally look at your route in the morning and you get, 10 jobs and they'd all hopefully be in the same part of town. And then you would open up, to the proper zip code and find the street. And then you would literally just have to find your way there using the paper map. So I don't know, maybe I could do that again. Be a good brain exercise, if nothing else, instead of just having Siri or Google tell me, exactly where to go. So I'll let you know how it goes. If it goes well, I might make it a normal thing. Who knows? We'll see. And just want to reiterate one other thing. I said earlier about the 50 millimeter and the 14 millimeter shots that I took. I just want to say those shots came out really, really good. And I'll remind everybody that I have not astro modified my Canon R5. And it did a great job at picking up all the nebulosity that I was hoping for in the Milky Way. I can clearly see the Lagoon and Trifid Nebula. I can see the Eagle, the Swan, or Omega Nebula. They're all there. Would they be more red with an astro modified or cooled camera? Yeah, absolutely they would be. But I'm telling you that because mirrorless cameras can absolutely do awesome astrophotography. So if you have one and you're avoiding astrophotography because you think, darn, I really need a cooled astro camera, stop doing that. Go out and take some photos with your DSLR mirrorless camera, because I'm telling you, they are more than capable of getting some really awesome shots, particularly if you're doing ultra wide field stuff like I love to do, you will have a really, really good time with that. So one of the friends of the show, Mark, he actually has been building a very impressive kit using his Canon camera. And he recently bought a new lens, and basically in combination with a teleconverter, he's going to have a rig that will be able to go, ultra wide field to ultra deep field with just one mount anywhere he goes. And he tends to travel quite a bit. So shout out to you, Mark. Definitely can't wait to hear more about that particular rig and those particular trips. All right. I know I didn't give a recommendation last week, and I don't know if I gave one the week before either. I think it might have been a couple of weeks since I gave a recommendation. So I've definitely got one for you this week, though. Longtime listeners of the show will know that I am a very, very big Stephen King fan. And I've read, I'm not going to say all of his books, but I would say probably 70 to 80% of his books. There are still some that I have not read. There's probably some I never will read just because I don't read as much as I'd like to. But as far as authors go, he is by far the one that I've read the most. And one of my absolute favorite series that he has written in recent times has been the Bill Hodges trilogy, and also the Holly series of books. So they're very interconnected. I won't let any spoilers out for those of you who may have not read these books before. But Stephen King is actually on record saying that Holly Gibney is his favorite character that he's ever created. And I have to say, I definitely agree with him. Holly is an absolutely awesome woman who really, really grows quite a bit throughout the saga that she is involved with in these stories. And just this week, just a couple days ago on Tuesday, in fact, the newest Holly book called Never Flinch came out in stores. So, of course, I went out with my wife and we picked up a hardback copy on day one, and I have been joyously reading it as much as I can each day. And it is great, just like you would expect. And just want to highly encourage anyone who has not read those stories yet to read them. And maybe if you have read the Mr. Mercedes series and you haven't caught up on all the Holly books, now would be a really, really good time to sink your teeth into those. Now, I will say, if you've never read any of these stories, I would highly encourage you to go back to Mr. Mercedes, which is the first book where Holly gets introduced, and then read through all of them. I think in total it's like 7 books. Let me see here. I actually made a post about this the other day, so super easy to find. Mr. Mercedes came out in 2014, followed by Finders Keepers in 2015, and then End of Watch in 2016. So that's the Bill Hodges trilogy. Holly then appears in The Outsider in 2018, If It Bleeds in 2020. She finally got her own story, which is titled Holly, that came out 2 years ago in 2023. And now we have Never Flinch. So quite a few stories to catch up on if you have not. I can highly recommend the Audible versions of these books too. They're very, very well voice acted. I really loved the woman who did the narration for Holly. I feel like she really nailed the character, and definitely nailed Holly's mom in her head whenever she would hear it. Anyway, I won't give away any spoilers, but check it out. That would be this week's recommendation for sure. All right, guys. So I know I'm cutting it a little bit shorter than normal this week. Do not worry, because we'll be back next week with a full-length episode, and you are definitely going to want to hear it. I'm hoping to have our next interview up next week. So keep your ears peeled for that. And we will be back. If you would like to support the show, again, feel free to visit us at patreon.com/the Astrocast. You can also get your Astrocast shirt. They're still available at qcroo.com/store. So thank you so much for tuning in this week. You have been listening to the Astrocast. I'm your host, Rue. And as always, clear skies.